Hello, LinkedIn. We've got LinkedIn coming in. Hello, YouTube. We've got YouTube Live coming in. So if you guys are picking this up, sorry, we've been starting a few lives on LinkedIn and a few lives on YouTube. And so good to see you guys. Good to be back from the marathon lockdown here in Sydney, Australia. I've got some great information today. We're going to be talking about what you can be focusing on in your organization to achieve business growth out of the pandemic. And we're going to look at some industries that have been significantly impacted and maybe how you can grow, but also how you can leverage opportunities. So remember, business is a full contact sport and it's about leveraging opportunities. Remember, you've got competitors out there. So you've got to be a fierce competitor. And how are you being a fierce competitor? You're competing on the business landscape. Your organization is competing on the business landscape, but we forget that we kind of all, everybody's like nice to each other, but let's not forget that it's fierce competition and it's there, and business is about, growth and development, and it's a full contact sport. So we want to look at what opportunities we can leverage. So yes, I know it's love and kindness and happiness on LinkedIn and on YouTube to a certain extent, but I want you to be a fierce competitor, and I want you guys get you guys motivated to grow out of this pandemic. So if you are somebody who is looking to grow your business out of the pandemic, and if you are somebody who is looking for opportunities that you can leverage, if you want sort of a kind of a different context and a different vision, in this video recording, I'm going to be talking about some opportunities that I see. We'll do a little bit of a deep dive analysis on some industries that have been impacted and how we can use those as opportunities. If your business has grown and scaled, we can look at what the next steps are for your organization. Or if your business has been impacted, or if you've got a side hustle that you want to grow out of this pandemic, then listen up. There's going to be a test at the end. We can talk strategy and what some strategic moves can be. Let's just talk about a couple of the industries that have been impacted that have been very obvious, and some of the industries that are not so obvious out of this particular pandemic. And I think it's, goes without saying that when governments have implemented public health restrictions on industries, and lots of industries have been impacted by the public health restriction, it's caused some industries to essentially be unable to trade. And so there's downstream impacts of that. And so if we use hospitality, so resort towns, resort destinations, islands, resort locations that rely almost exclusively on tourism, in a lot of locations have had their traffic, visitor traffic and tourist traffic go to basically zero. We've had other industries like hospitality and restaurants basically restricted. So you can't have people in, hotels and pubs and clubs, particularly here in Australia with the hospitality culture. We haven't been able to have those venues open. And so it's been kind of takeaway only. There's some downstream ancillary impacts of that where impacts on revenues have been noticed. And one interesting industry is the advertising industry. And so let me explain. With businesses, one of the key measures that you might hear sometimes in the media is the measure of business confidence. So coming into the festive season trading periods in different places in the world, they talk about retailer confidence. Retailer confidence is up, retailer confidence is down. And so, with public health restrictions as an example, retailer confidence has been down, but online businesses have been up, and a lot of online businesses have exploded because with public health restrictions and people being at home, they're at home, they've got more spare time because they're not out to dinner or not out seeing friends, they're not out traveling around because they're in lockdown. And so a lot of online businesses with people's free time, they were online shopping. So that's something that's interesting, but the advertising industry was down because business confidence was down, and people running businesses, and I'm guilty of this too, I did it as well, is hunkering down and starting to look at cutting fixed costs, cutting variable costs as much as possible, and cutting fixed costs so that money can be kept and cash can be protected for a rainy day and through the pandemic. And a lot of us not knowing how long it was going to go for. And don't get me wrong, it's going to continue. So I think we've still got another year at least of this pandemic and the impacts of the pandemic to play out. And so a lot of economies have been overheated because of government subsidies and government stimulus to keep economies stimulated, and they've kind of been artificially stimulated, kind of like a drug would stimulate a body a human body, you can get stimulants, and the government stimulus money has been artificially inflating some parts of some economies, and that's going to dry up, and it's going to cause, the real life pandemic is still yet to come, because we had a lot of governments printing a lot of money and doing a lot of government bonds and doing a lot of government stimulus. That's going to stop, and we're going to see the real aftermath. So we haven't seen the aftermath of the pandemic just yet, and that's really the opportunities and the, I want to gear you guys for this aftermath to see where the opportunities are, where the pickings are out in business, because it is a full contact sport. Business is a full contact sport, and I want you to be a fierce competitor on the business landscape. So, I know that live on LinkedIn, we're live on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and yes, it's love and kindness and happiness with our work colleagues, but let's not forget it's about fierce competition, and you have to be a fierce competitor. You have to be on the offense, not on the defense. We've had the beginning of the pandemic, we're on the defense. Now it's time to get on the offense. It's time to be a fierce competitor. So if you're a fierce competitor in your industry with your business, be thinking like that, and be thinking about what you can do to grow your organization, pivot your organization, expand your organization. And so what businesses do when they start talking about variable costs is they cut advertising, they cut discretionary spend, they cut business travel. These are the kind of costs that businesses cut. They have implications. They cut business lunches, business catering. And so some of those costs are not going to come back quickly. We're not going straight back into business travel. A lot of people can't travel. There's a lot of countries that still can't travel. And so holiday travel, there's a lot of people that are desperate. They're going to be straight back out there with holiday travel. But business travel used to underwrite holiday travel. And holiday travel was, in my opinion, was way too cheap. And that gave holiday travel, a lot more people could access holiday travel. So the cheap flights and all that kind of stuff, that you can get cheap flights because business travelers are paying a lot of money for business class and first class travel. And so your holiday travel was cheaper, and you could get around the world and travel fairly economically. Now, there's a lot of global reporting, particularly in the S&P 500 in the US and the ASX 200. When you read their annual reports, they've cut business travel. They're using virtual video conferencing and virtual conferencing to do a lot of the work that used to be done face-to-face, and they are not bringing back that cost. They've reset their budgets, at least until the end of financial years. Then the managers of different parts of those businesses have got to put back in business cases to say, we need to ramp our business travel back up. Now, there is old school people that will do it, but there's a lot of businesses that have moved to virtual conferencing that will not bring back to pre-pandemic levels business travel. So expect to see holiday travel increasing. Now, why is that important? Well, there's a couple of things. Obviously, advertising down. And so because advertising down, that means that potentially your competition starting on advertising because they weren't sure what was happening, and that was a variable cost. So if you can be the first back into advertising, you might be able to get some really economical deals to bring traffic or more inquiry, more interest in your organization. So look at that and say, okay, let me go shopping around on advertising. You definitely won't be paying pre-pandemic dollars that you were before the pandemic for your advertising. Are you spending enough money on advertising? And I can almost say that probably not, because if you're like me and my confidence of what was going to happen was eroded, I reduced my advertising spend. Now that's right back up there again, and that's really efficient and really dynamic and more niche than ever in focusing on the ideal customer for our organization. So any industry, are you focusing on your ideal customer? Are you being more refined with your ideal customer and then double down on your advertising spend and get that going again? Pay for proximity to your potential customers. You've got to pay for proximity. Don't just sit back and take orders and wait for word of mouth referrals. Make that happen. And that's where you can really explode out of the pandemic, because the first to move, the first movers are the ones that are going to cement advantage in the long term. So be the first mover in any of the industries. So if we start thinking about hospitality and tourism, we start thinking about ancillary businesses to those industries, there's a lot of those industries that are going to struggle. Particularly right here in the local area where I live, is hospitality staff are in high demand. And so if you're somebody who's in hospitality, you've been working in casual hospitality, providing casuals and finding great people for hospitality industries, everybody's trying to hire. But because the pandemic went on for so long, and because a lot of hospitality people are kind of hooked on the subsidy money, they're reluctant to go back into hospitality, which is kind of minimum wage and low pay rates. And so you can start to think about, is there an opportunity there? Is there an opportunity to be providing people into the hospitality industry, into the tourism industry? Because hospitality businesses, they refined their costs. They got their costs right down so they could survive. So the hospitality businesses that have survived have minimized their costs. And so as demand for those businesses increases and revenue and traffic back into those businesses, they're going to be more profitable before they were before the pandemic, more likely to pay higher wages and salaries. So if you're a hospitality worker, if you know someone who's a hospitality worker, you're in the best position now more than ever to go in and negotiate. So don't just accept the minimum wage. You can go in and be negotiating higher wages and higher rates of pay. So there's an opportunity there for any businesses. If you're kind of responsible for the business, move first with advertising. Get really refined with advertising. If it's hospitality, have a think about how you can negotiate salaries and wages. If you were providing services to hospitality, I know that a lot of things, like, I know of businesses that were printing menus for hospitality. A lot of hospitality businesses have gone digital. They've gone to their website. The menu's on their website, and they just say to the people when they come into the bar or the club or the pub, you can just check out the menu on your iPhone. Everyone's got the smartphone in their pocket. They're used to checking in. You can just say, well, here's a QR code for the menu. You just scan the QR code that's on the table. Menu pops up on your iPhone. You don't need a menu on a digital screen. You don't need a menu, behind the bar anymore. You don't need to look at it because they can just be looking at the device. So QR codes have exploded. How can you use QR codes to drive traffic to your social media when a customer is in your premises? Scan this QR code and tag a picture of you in the store on your Instagram handle, for example. So there's a lot of great opportunities where buying behavior and customer behavior has changed. So don't double index if you're in business travel. Just be mindful that business travel, we're not going back to business travel. We used to spend a lot of money on business travel. We're saving that now. We're redeploying that money. We're not going to be spending anywhere near the amount on business travel. So if I'm out of the market for business travel, other businesses are going to be. So I want you to think about that. So start thinking about the niche and start thinking about the customer's experience. How has the customers, if you lost customers in the pandemic and they've been gone for 6 or 12 or 18 months, how have their behaviors changed? Don't expect them to just snap back. They're going to come back as an educated customer. They've been punished by the pandemic. They're going to be different. They're going to have different expectations. They're going to have different buying behaviors. They're going to have more matured buying behaviors. The loyal crowds have gone. Some of them will come back. But be mindful that you'll have a spike and then it'll die off again. And I've seen real estate around the world grow at phenomenal rates. And that's largely driven by inflation, which has been driven by economic stimulus. So it's kind of a false inflated price that the real estate's the same. The houses are the same. I've been driving past houses that look exactly the same. Last year, they were worth $1 million. Now they're worth $2 million. Or whatever it was, $100,000, $200,000. They've increased in value. But largely, there are more $50 notes and $100 notes in your currency, wherever you are in the world. There's more dollar notes available than there were before the pandemic because governments have been printing money. And so, if this glass of water was $1, now it's $1.50 because there's more dollar notes in the marketplace. So the glass is the same. The currency has gone down in value. So think about how that impacts you. If your supply chains got disrupted, that's also been the case for your competitors. It's one of our businesses, we went and bought a whole bunch of stock in advance and secured stock. We needed to increase our storage space, but we got bigger volumes of stock at cheaper pricing. We're going to use the stock. We've just got to hold it. And so there's the holding cost. Now, money's really cheap right now. And so if you need to borrow money to buy more stock that you're guaranteed you're going to use and it's not going to go off, then take advantage of businesses that are saying, well, we want to get back in the game and we want to do some big margin, some big dollar value revenue sales. So your suppliers, you say, look, you can sell me more stuff. Money's cheap. I can go borrow some money for that. money's cheap. I can go borrow some more money for that. So that's something that I want you to consider is, if you are leading a business, can you borrow money to buy more stock? So if you can control your cost of goods sold, because you can get potentially your raw materials, the things you need for your business, bulk buying. Can you do bulk buying and get a better deal? Money is cheap right now. Can you do that bulk buying? So those are the kinds of things. But I really wanted to get the message across today that I want you to be a fierce competitor. And that's everything that we're trying to do here at Best Practice is, we want to help you to make your organization more attractive and the business that you've got more attractive for your customers, for people. People are changing careers. People are changing jobs. They're starting to move around the economy. I know there's lots of people here in this building where we are who have changed jobs, changed industries, changed careers in the last 18 months. They're not going back to where they were. They were there. They're now seeing the grass is greener on the other side of the fence and they're changing. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But also, my word of warning is test your assumptions. Test your assumptions. So if you've got assumptions that stuff's going to snap back, test that assumption. How has behaviors changed and how can you pivot? So a couple of things to put in your checklist. And thanks for joining us on LinkedIn. I see a couple of people there joining us on LinkedIn. So hello, LinkedIn. We are live, and YouTube. We are live. So I want you to think about. This is in testing those assumptions. I want you to think about what are the geographical trends. So what trended down? What's your prediction in terms of it trending back up? What trended up? So what has been overinflated and overheated? Will it trend down? Will it cool off? What's happening in terms of your innovations? So we need, a lot of businesses were forced to innovate. Innovation should be part of the month-to-month, quarterly-to-quarterly activity in any organization. So are you budgeting for innovation? And what are you budgeting for innovation in the next quarter and then the quarter after that? What are you budgeting in terms of new products and services? And what I've been doing is I've been spending a lot of time. I spent the day before we shot this video yesterday. I spent 5 hours on the phone talking to customers, listening, asking questions, going to your customers. And all organizations have got customers, your businesses, that's what we're talking about. That's the subject matter here, is getting on the phone, getting in front of your customers and saying, hey, what's on your mind? What's changed for you? What are you changing in your organization? What does success look like for you? You could ask your customers, in thinking about the next 12 weeks, what does success look like? In thinking about the last 12 weeks, what went wrong? In thinking about the next 12 weeks, what do you think is going to prevent you from achieving your goals? Do you see anything that I could do to be helping with that? And that's whether they're a consumer in a retail store buying clothes, whether they're on your website and you've got an online e-com business, whether you're business to business like us. Those are the things I want you to be thinking about, that you can improve your buyer's experience. What can you do for the customers that you've still got? And maybe the ones that went away, the customers that went away. And if you've got their email addresses, you could send them an email and say, hey, are you coming back? Or has your buying behavior changed? If it has changed, what changed? And if you're not coming back, where did you go? Do you still buy that product or service, or has it changed? I am not planning on going back into a supermarket to buy groceries for my house on a weekly basis ever again. So if you make signs and printed signs for supermarkets, I won't be seeing them. Now, people will still go to supermarkets, but in our household, we'll go to the supermarket maybe once every 2 or 3 weeks to buy some ancillary things. Maybe we're going out to dinner with some friends and we've got to buy some specialty stuff. But we've gotten very good. We've had 18 months of practice in our house planning for the weekly delivery of our groceries. And so we now have the app open at all times. We can keep adding groceries to the list. We press submit, and 2 days later, it turns up at our house. So the discretionary shopping around a supermarket that we used to do, not doing anymore. I used to just buy from one online store. In fact, I used to buy a huge amount, all my books and everything from eBay. Now I've got more confidence to explore other shops that I might not trust. And I realize that actually I'm going to be making some mistakes and I might lose a bit of money with a poor quality online store that's not organized or rips me off or it's a scam. But I used to get scammed in the shops anyway. I'd buy clothes that didn't fit that I couldn't return, or shoes that didn't fit that I couldn't return. And I've realized that actually it's the same. But the advantage to me is I value my time. And so now I don't have to drive to the shops. I don't have to park in the car park. I don't have to find a car parking spot. I don't have to get frustrated. I don't have to get my car damaged going into the parking lot and then people damaging my car. I don't have to do any of that. It's by the time I leave my house to go to the shops to browse, it's an hour, to get organized, to go, to do it. It's not a quick trip. So I'm not doing that anymore. I can sit in the comfort of my own home and I can browse. And a lot of websites, people invested in their websites, invested in their online shops and got better at what they're doing. And so as a result now, I'm like, this is fantastic. So Jeff Bezos gives out a fair bit of good advice. And if you lean into Jeff Bezos, the guy that started Amazon and runs Amazon, he says that he only invests in businesses that are going to be around in 10 years' time, buyer demand that's going to be around in 10 years' time. But the other thing too is he says that buyers are going to consistently want more convenience and faster service and cheaper service. So if you want to be a disruptor in your industry with your product or service, then start thinking about an alternative, even an alternative for what you've currently got. If you're the first mover, you're going to own that space. If you want more market share, you're going to own that space. How can you be faster? How can you be cheaper? How can you control your costs of goods sold, get your costs of goods sold down so that you can offer a better price to your customer or more value? So customers, first and foremost, are going to want you always want a cheaper price for what you're buying. So why would your customers be any different? So yes, of course, everyone wants more value, but how can you give your customer a cheaper price? How can you give your customer a cheaper price and keep your business profitable? Because if you can give out cheaper prices, now it's not about racing to the bottom of the barrel, because then we get disruption. And I was only thinking the other day about my iPhone, and I was thinking to myself, well, what's the next disruption? I don't like carrying my iPhone. It's huge. I've got one of the big iPhones, the big Max one. And I'm thinking to myself, when I go for a walk, I don't want to carry it. And I was thinking, actually, now I've got my credit card on one of my watches. I take that for a walk. I've got my credit card. But maybe if my watch could take a photo, so I've got my watch and there's my camera, then I'm not taking my iPhone because I need my credit card, I need my driver's license, my credit card, my driver's license, my camera, and my phone calls are all on my watch. So maybe the next evolution of smartwatches is a camera. So you can take pictures. You don't need the iPhone. And so start thinking about that, thinking about your own behaviors, and there's the opportunity for innovation as an indicator, but don't be a focus group of one. Like, don't just go, oh, that's a great idea. Maybe we should bring that to fruition. The money gets made when you solve big problems for big groups of people. So what's the big group of people? Who are the big group of people? What are their names? Go talk to them. And so I think the biggest piece of advice out of all of this is talking to your customers and asking them what's on their mind and what else and what else. And in thinking about the next 12 weeks, what does success look like? Okay. Excellent. I'm getting a time check. I'm getting a time call. So it's good to be back live streaming. Not a very big audience today. We're going to start sending out some more emails and letting you guys know when we go live, answering your questions. But we're very much going to be focused on helping you grow, helping great people to come to your organization and bang on the door and say, I want to be part of your team. So it's easy to find great people because they're right outside your front door. And more importantly, turning your organization into a great investment. That's what we're focusing on. So if you're an organization that wants help with growth, with scale, more profitability, more revenue, more business freedom, then you've come to the right place. You're right here with us here at Best Practice. So new show coming down. We're going to be launching a brand new show, brand new live show. So look out for that. I'm really excited about what we're doing in the background. So you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Don't forget, if you're watching live on YouTube, to hit like and subscribe. Click the notifications little bell so that you get notified when our channel is live. And we've got tons more great information for you here right on YouTube. Good to have you on board LinkedIn. We're live on LinkedIn, and it's great to be back live streaming on LinkedIn. So look out for the new show and the new format. And if you haven't listened to it, please be aware that the Kobi Simmat audio experience and Talking Business with Kobi Simmat, the podcast is cranking along. So our podcast is on your favorite platform. Check out the podcast. If you've got any feedback for us and we can do more to help you, and you've got any specific questions, I want to know what's on your mind. And while you're thinking about what's on your mind, and let me know in the comments, I'll go away and do some more research, and I'll be right back very shortly here on Best Practice TV, talking business with Kobi Simmat if you're listening to the podcast right now, and live on LinkedIn. Bye for now.